Welcome back in for another episode of the Vitamin C's podcast, proud part of the CLNS Media Network. I am your host, Tim Sheils, and I am joined by my co host and bro, Wayne Breezy Brown. Wayne, how are we feeling today? Feeling much better, I think? Maybe.
Absolutely feeling much better. Look, the Celtics did what they needed to do. They tied this series up 1-1. Um, I'm over the first game. If we can do what we did, I'm not saying we need to blow this team out like by 30 points again, but if we continue to play the type of basketball that we played in last night's game, man, the Celtics will dominate this series. And the key was like it's Embiid. They play better against Embiid. Like when he's in the game, when Giannis is in the game, when that superstar is playing, there's only one superstar I feel like that gives the Celtics problems. And maybe because he's not a super duper star, and that's Jimmy Butler.
Okay, I
But
was going to say, Luca
yeah,
gives some problems too. Luca's had so many
he's a
game winners
superstar though.
against him.
I,
Yeah,
I
that's
give
true.
I
That's
give him
true. That's true.
superstar. Like he hits those. It always comes down to the game winning shot, and he hits it. But Jimmy, I don't know if people label him as a super duper star, but because he's not labeled a super duper star, he just gives the Celtics
There's
problems.
levels to this.
There's levels to this stuff, y'all. But welcome to the Vitamin C Show, Tim. I'm great. I hope you're great.
I'm doing much better. Winning cures all illnesses and ailments. So, anything you're feeling, like vibes are great right now. Absolutely immaculate after that kind of win. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, especially when you talk about Embiid. I think the Celtics play well against guys like Embiid and Giannis just because of the way they're able to defend, and it does slow the game down. So even if Embiid was at like 100% health, I think their offense slows down a lot more, which allows Al Horford to be much more effective. And I talked about this on the pregame show for How About Them C's, but the one thing I was calling for was I wanted them to get Grant Williams involved. Grant Williams was integral, 100% absolutely integral in that win. I'm hoping we continue to see him get more minutes. I mean, he played more minutes in this one game than he did in his two games in Atlanta combined. Played almost 20, basically 29 minutes, 4 of 8 from the field, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal, a plus 22 on the night, only 2 fouls. And what they did was that I really, really loved was they would sub in Grant when Al Horford was out of the game. So they'd sub in Grant. So and they would line it up so like Embiid gets pulled out of the game, right? Al Horford
Hmm.
was out there defending him. They'd pull Al Horford out and then they would put Grant Williams in. So like Grant was getting a lot of run and they were using his size to keep up with the speed because that was the biggest thing, right? That Philly had going in game 1. They were smaller, they were faster, they were able to get out and run. Their transition defense was a lot faster because they were able to get out and get moving on both sides of the floor. And for Embiid right now, not only is he just like a bigger, slower guy, just based on the nature of his physicality and his stature, but he's not operating at 100%. So like that knee's definitely slowing him down and hampering him. The Celtics made a point of attacking in the paint, getting foul calls, and it was just overall a much different game than game 1. And you do have to wonder if the 76ers, I mean, rushed Embiid back. This might have been a mistake. And I feel like they should have waited until the series got back to Philly. And I mean, we talked about it before when we were talking about series preview and stuff. Embiid should have come back in game 3. They shouldn't have brought him back for game 2. You stole game 1 and you found a style of basketball that worked against the Celtics, and then you immediately went against it and tried to get Embiid back into it and make him a part of the offense. Outside of the 5 blocks, he wasn't as effective as you'd want him to be. In terms of the offense, it just wasn't there. I mean, 4 or 9 from the field, 0 or 2 from 3. Most of his work, 7 or 8 from the line. So you saw more free throws this game, but just not a stellar game from him. And on top of that, he played almost 27 minutes. So you got to see how that knee's doing. There's going to be some swelling for sure.
I think one of the reasons why they probably tried to get him back is they knew he had to get back into some type of basketball shape. And would it be okay being up 1-0? Would that be the best moment to kind of like get him back in? So hopefully by game 3, game 4, he might be into back into some type of basketball shape, but he's gonna deal with the injury regardless. The best thing for Embiid will be to lose, and then he can go home and heal up all the way. But that would be the best thing. Interesting, fun fact. All right, so if you go back to game 4, the Celtics versus the 76ers, it was 135 to 87. The Celtics won that game. Grant Williams played 26 minutes and scored 12 points and had almost identical stats to what he did in this past game.
So this was what, last year's game 4?
Yes.
Okay.
Isn't that
Interesting.
interesting?
Very interesting.
But what took, I mean, that Missoula wasn't there. Maybe they went back to watch some old film, some old basketball tape, and they kind of was like, you know what, Grant? It's I'm messing up. It's time. It's your time.
I don't know what it's gonna take, man. It really pisses me off that he's just completely fallen out of the rotation. This is a guy who is a regular contributor, and I expressed my frustrations yesterday about it on the pregame show. But he's a guy that needs to be getting minutes, and it just makes 0 sense to me. I don't know what he did exactly, if it was maybe it was just like a play style thing where he was trying to focus too much on getting his own shots and his own buckets. Because there would be times where he would just drive on a possession, it's like, "We don't need you to do that. We need you to take threes." And I mean, you look what he did, 4 of 8 shooting, all of
Mm-hmm.
it from three-point range, and he shot
Mm-hmm.
50% on it, and he was, like, super high effectiveness from there, and that's kinda what you want him to do, and maybe that's what the issue was, is that he was getting away from that. He was trying to, add this post up game, and unless you're just catching it on the low block, that's not what you need Grant Williams to do. You need him out there to space the floor. So maybe that's why Joe. I'm searching for reasons, man. I'm searching for
That
reasons as to
sounds a
why
good.
Joe's not giving him minutes.
I
That's
mean, that sounds like you're hitting the nail on the head, right? I mean, he was trying to do something. He was trying to like develop on the spot, and you
mm,
can't develop. You can't be developing in the playoffs. Like there's no development. You have a role, you play the role, and the more you play the role, and the more successful you are in playing the role, the more minutes you're going to get. And so going into a hostile environment on Friday, I think Grant's gonna do just damn fine. Like he's gonna be all right. And I think Missoula and the trust and all that type of stuff is getting built back into the system, because now you're starting to see Grant play smarter basketball and things like that. And the Celtics, man, I mean, they do their thing. 121 to 87. That's what you needed. That's what you wanted to see. Weird game, because my favorite player only had 7 points.
yeah, weird night from Tatum. 1 of 7 from the field. Overall, he still was a positive. He was a plus 24 on the night, which is the highest plus minus of the entire game. So he was finding other ways to impact the game. 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 turnovers, and a block. 5 of 5 from the line. So he was making a point of attacking. Here's the thing, though, only like 20 minutes,
Yeah,
19 minutes and
19.
20 seconds of floor time. So you kept him pretty fresh. Most of the starters, the only player that was a starter that went like just over 30 minutes was Jalen
Jalen
Brown.
Brown.
His 30 minutes and 3 seconds. So everybody else, they made sure to pull him off the floor, which I felt was awesome. I mean, Rob didn't even break 22 minutes. So you've got all of these guys who you played well enough, you blew the doors off of them, and you're able to give those guys a little bit of rest. And I think that's huge. And the same goes, I mean, for the 76ers in that sense, because Joel Embiid's still recovering. He got those 26 minutes of floor time, but for a guy who's recovering from LCL injury, he's come out and said in his post game, "Yeah, this injury. I should be out 4 to 6 weeks." And it's like, dude, then why are you playing? I don't
He's
understand.
trying to prove to his team that he's no, you know,
Yeah, but I
he's not
get it to an
soft.
extent,
That's
but dude,
I just want to make sure I'm saying stuff.
no, I get you. I get you. No, it's
It's got to
fine,
be
man.
that, right? I mean, it's got to be that. I mean,
It's
he's
the toughness
i-
thing.
league MVP and doesn't play a lot of basketball.
They
So,
completely erased Harden too, by the way. 2 of
uh,
14 from the field. That
yeah,
he just completely evaporated. It was I mean, he got 10 rebounds, which was surprising, but 4 assists, and then besides that, I mean, he did his work from the line. 8 of 10 from the line was where he got pretty much all of his points. So they eliminated him completely from the offensive scheme, and I don't know how much of that is just Joe
that's Joe.
or
I
the
mean,
team bringing the effort, because I feel like it was like an effort problem, and you saw the change in energy and intensity. They really were making a point of just getting out there
that's the
and
key.
sticking it to 'em.
That's the
So
ding ding.
I
That is.
I appreciate that you now have the soundboard up and running and that we're running with it 'cause, it's great. It's fantastic. But
That was the ding ding. I'm sorry. That was
ding, ding.
they came with intensity. And that was the whole point. Like all right, game 1.
Mm.
It was a weird back and forth. All right, you score, we score, you score, we score, we score, you score, blah blah blah. It was just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The Celtics shouldn't play that type of basketball.
Can't can't build a lead.
No, you play defense and you find ways to get them to miss.
Mm.
Period. Force them to shoot. If they hitting, they hitting. But make sure you playing that good perimeter defense. I'm telling you, the key to this Celtics victory was the fact that Joel Embiid limped his big ass out there on the court. That was the key. That I knew from that
Can't argue
moment.
with that, man.
I knew from that moment, I was like, oh, the Celtics got this. I didn't know they were going to win by that much, but I was like, oh, they got this. They want to play against Embiid. They like that matchup. It's a better matchup for Al. He's not stretched around the perimeter all the daggone time. Let Embiid take his threes. If he makes them, okay, good shot.
You live with it.
You live with it. I don't want Harden shooting, period. And I think the fact that Embiid was a factor on his squad and on our squad because it took the ball out of James Harden's hand. Like that was the issue. Like he had the ball predominantly. Him and Maxey, those two guards, figured out how to play two-guard ball without Embiid on the court. It got others involved. Who's the guy off the bench from game 1 that got them like 17 points? Was it the Anthony Melton?
It was probably Melton. I don't know how many points he finished with,
2.
but he did
He,
well. Yeah, and they
right.
yeah,
But
completely
my
taken out
point
of it.
is you're taking away from the bench so he can't get activated. I'll take what I get from their starters, and I don't expect their starters to play as poorly as they did. I mean, Tobias Harris did lead them in scoring with 16. He's going to get off because you allow the third, fourth person to do their thing. Like it's take away options 1, 2, and 3, right? And so
Mhm.
I thought the Celtics did a pretty dang good job in doing so.
I think they disrupted their playmaking. I think that's the big thing when you're talking about getting the
Okay.
ball out of Harden's hands. They only had 13 assists on the night, but 11 turnovers.
They had
Like
11
their
turnovers.
offense was yeah, their offense was all over the place.
You win the
But
turnover battle, you win the game. Usually.
only 6 turnovers by the Celtics. So I
Don't say
was
only.
impressed by
That's
that.
great. That's amazing.
Only 6 is great. Yeah.
Right. That's a
Sub
beautiful
12.
thing.
You get under 12, generally you're gonna win a
Okay.
game.
I thought it was
That's my
10,
opinion.
but you said
10,
12.
I say, well, there was a point in time, I want to say it might have been back during the bubble, was like that was like around the magic number, was like if they had under 12 turnovers, they would win a game
Okay.
generally. Yeah, you do want to try and keep it as low as possible. Under 10 would be fantastic for every single game. One big jump is the fact that Celtics went from taking only 26 attempts from three-point range last game to taking 51 this game.
Yeah,
20 of 51, damn
they
near
went to the locker
40%.
room. They must have listened to our podcast because they went to
50,
the locker room and said, "Wait a minute, we only shot 20 what times? That's not
50.
Celtics basketball."
I mean, 50, man. Like that's a massive jump and they needed it. Like that's again, like Joe just dunks on people with this stuff. As much as we critique like the three-pointers, quality matters with three-point shots, and they took a lot of quality threes, and they hit a lot of quality threes. As soon as those threes started falling, like, the game just completely opened up for them.
Agreed.
But this offense, the only way it's gonna work is if they're just shooting threes and a high capacity of them, and that's sort of what ended up happening in this game. 2 little factoids. 1, this was the first time this season that the Celtics held an opponent to under 90 points, and it was also the largest, uh, loss margin for the Philadelphia 76ers in their playoff history. Yes, bravo, bravo. So they just handed them their biggest playoff L ever, which is phenomenal for lack of a better term.
It's so cool because when the Celtics beat a team, they like to beat a team bad. And when it's, this rival, remember back in the day we played Philly and Paul Pierce was this ain't no rival. I don't know what was wrong with Paul Pierce, but no, when you look at this rivalry and you beat a team like this, you're sending a message to the league, not to this team. The 76ers and Doc Rivers know if the Celtics show up in their A game, it's gonna be really hard to beat them. If they're shooting these many attempts and they're hitting these shots, it's gonna be really hard to beat them. We can't keep up with their 3-point shooting. Even though they're the number one 3-point shooting team, I believe, in the league. 76ers have the best percentage, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I could
But
pull it up for the regular season or just the
yeah,
playoffs.
I think you can pull it for both, maybe, because I know I remember hearing that game one, and I was just like, man, our perimeter defense is struggling that game. But no, it's so cool that the Celtics come out and there's hand a butt whooping, and so now they have something really to build off on, and you can say, well, Tatum, it's time for you to get your stuff together. Because imagine if Tatum is injected into this offense the normal, like his normal way. You know what I don't mind from Tatum though? I like his aggression. I like the fact that he's taking it to the basket. He's not getting the calls though. I think that's what's frustrating him and throwing him a little bit off his game. I think Jason Tatum just needs to, if he doesn't get the call, shake it off and find a way to clap back in terms, because I feel like that takes him out of his game mentally, and then he's just not going to shoot well. And so for Tatum, who does shoot relatively very well, um, he needs to continue to get to the basket. We still can score inside on these guys. It changes up a little bit with Joel being back there. But if I'm the Celtics, I'm going after those knees, like literally. Like take him on those knees, make him jump, make him bump, make him fall, make him stumble. Don't hit him in the knees. I'm not saying play
You're
dirty.
just like Nancy Kerrigan. It's just
Right.
like it's like
Don't hit
Jesus.
him with the roller skate and the kneecaps. You know what I'm saying? Nah, but just play physical with him is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Be very physical with Embiid because you can do it. Like you can do it. He's still great. Still the MVP. He still makes tough shots. But that's what you're gonna get from Embiid. You want him crying and falling on the floor.
Yeah, you gotta have to attack that mismatch, and you can't really hesitate to do that. And I don't think the Celtics did. I think the one thing that did impact Tatum, like you said, I think those calls not going his way, but then also calls going the opposite way. He racked up 4 fouls really fast. One of them was really bad, where Harden got hit in the face
Oh,
by
that was
Tatum's
it.
arm, but it was like Joel Embiid screened and was like moving screen and pinned his arm, and Harden just like went into it.
So here's
S-
why Tatum is pissed, right? So go back to the night, the game before when PJ Tucker swung and hit him in the
Mhm.
nuts.
Yep. And they didn't call anything on
They
that,
didn't
which is
call.
still crazy to me.
Wh-
And then PJ Tucker got hit with a call that reminded me of it when I think it was was it Brown, I think? Brown was going to try and set up some kind of screen, or it might have been he was on defense and backed into like PJ or something, and PJ took it personally, and then he just swung his shoulder into him, and they called an offensive foul on PJ Tucker, and I'm like, that's a tone setter from last game because
Mhm.
you let him get away with that kind of stuff, and it's just
Correct. And I mean, you went back
yeah,
and watched it, and I don't want to like stay stuck on it. I mean, like
mhm,
they're saying, oh, it was just he was just swinging. Nobody's
absolutely not.
he's
No,
swinging his arm that late after the dude went already past him. Come on, Cletus, be better than that. Like, don't give any excuses. He knew what he was doing. You can feel people in your vicinity. It's a feeling that you have. He swung, it hit him, and they should have called something, but they didn't. And I'm telling you, like the game was a lot different in game two, I tell you that. But I think Tatum, with all that stuff in his head and it just not coming to fruition, the stuff not being called the same way, I think that's kind of what gets to him. And that's the only knock on Jason Tatum's game, but he's still a kid. So
he's still
that's
young.
he's still
Yeah,
young. And that happens. Imagine him 7 years from now when that stuff doesn't phase him and he's sticking out the tongue like Jordan and just doing his thing. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
so it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, I expect a bounce back game. You were correct. So Philly actually had the highest shooting percentage from 3-point range. Um, they shot 38.7% from deep. They didn't rank as high on attempts. They were actually, now as I'm scrolling down, they were pretty low in attempts. They were 16th in the league in 3-point attempts.
But that
So
makes why their percentage is
yeah,
higher. They take less shots.
yeah, they take less shots from 3, but that's because you got Joel Embiid, so, like, you're not gonna need to as much because you're gonna
Good point.
work the free throw line, you're gonna work
Mhm.
in the paint, you're gonna get up buckets that way. That's for the regular season. In terms of the playoffs, they actually rank 3rd, 38.3. Celtics are 2nd, Miami Heat are 1st. So that's something worth considering, especially if you're trying to look ahead at all. But going into game 3, I expect a bounce back performance from Tatum. I don't think I don't think saying that he'll have, like, a stinker,
Yeah,
again, would be, a safe I think that's a safe assumption to say that won't happen again. I'm not saying he's gonna have a monster performance. There very well could happen, but they're not gonna be afraid to play in Philly, and I think that's
absolutely
sort
not.
of the home court thing, like, losing game 1 obviously sucks, but you're not gonna be able to win a championship if you're afraid to play games on the road, and I just don't think that this team in particular is afraid to do that. I mean, you saw them go down to Atlanta, take game 6. They saw them do this last year when the Bucks were up, had a chance to close it out at home. Celtics ended up taking that game 6 to make it a 7-game series and bring it back to
Mhm.
Boston. And that was on the backs of a massive Jason Tatum performance. I mean, they've done the same thing against the Miami Heat before too. So having the opportunity to go into another person's building and take a win, that's really what it takes to be a championship team. It's like you got to be able to take care of business at home. And when you don't, you learn from it, you move on, you bounce back. And that's really what this team did in game 2. And they did it so convincingly. A lot of people going into the series favored the Celtics, and game 1 kind of made people hesitant. But if they're going to include well, I think there's some people who had, like, really strong reactions to game 1. There are
I
a lot
mean,
of people
the,
did.
the,
They were like,
the,
"Oh, this is gonna be a 6 or 7 game series." I'm still for all intents and purposes, I am not moving off of that
5 games.
5-game prediction
No,
because I wanna see how they respond. I wanna see how they respond in game 3. They take game 3, my prediction is still very much alive and well.
I agree.
So, we'll see.
I agree. But the Celtics showed that they're resilient, right? So resiliency is the key, and it's been that all season long. And if you follow the Celtics trajectory, they lose games when the superstar doesn't play. Like those
So
are games
weird.
that they lose. I know,
So
but if we're following that trajectory, so when they lost game 1, my hopes didn't go throughout the door. It was just a wacky finish,
I was
right?
annoyed.
It
That
was
was
a
probably the best way to put it.
yeah, because damn it, we were up with 20 seconds left by 1 or something, and then it came down to Harden hitting a big shot, and then we turned the ball over again twice. But my point is, it was just a weird synergy of how they supposed to close out a game due to the lack of their game plan being around their big guy, the superstar from the Philadelphia 76ers. So they it was a fight. It was a fight. It was a good battle game 1. The Sixers only won by 4 points. I told you if the Sixers win a game, which is the one game that I said that they would win, I told you it would be close. That was a damn close game. Like
Yeah.
really close. And now the Celtics just showed you that they can pull away and they can finish. And they could do it without their superstar. Hmm. Like,
That's the other thing
mm.
too. You look at that performance, it's a massive, massive win, like damn near 40 points. And you did so on the backs of pretty much everybody else that's not named Jason
Good game
Tatum.
from Malcolm Brogdon, though. We have to give him his props.
I also want to give I mean, 6 of 10 from 3. Just like
He was feeling
monstrous.
it, bro. He
He
was
was, and
feeling it.
Derek White bounced back too. 5 of 9 from the field,
Sh-
3 of 6 from 3.
Had
Marcus
a
Smart, yeah, also gotta give love to. Marcus
absolutely.
was so good. That,
Absolutely.
uh, that reverse alley-oop dunk, to kick off the quarter, oh man, that was electric. That's what you do. That's like an energizer. That's a guy who, ignites that culture, and they seem amped up for
Every
it.
time you say a word,
I love it.
energizer. And
And, Grant does it too. You gotta give Grant credit. We
yeah,
already did, but I'm gonna give credit to Grant as many times as I can.
because he deserves it and he plays his best basketball during the playoffs.
Mhm. Yep.
When the lights are on, he plays his best basketball during the playoffs. Stats don't lie. And so, look, I really feel like the Celtics are like they just have to stay on their course and their trajectory. And as long as Embiid plays, you game plan to him, you find a way to negate James Harden, and you ask, Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey, come beat me. Like that's the game plan. And so, I mean, because at the end of the day, Harden's gonna hit a couple of threes, and you're gonna be like, God dang it, right? They're gonna find the mismatch, set the pick and roll, let him shoot, and if it goes in, they're happy. At the end of the day, Embiid is gonna get you at least 15 points a game, and you know he's good for at least 130 plus point game. Which game is that gonna be? I don't know, but you know he's good for one. And I think the Celtics just have to continue to figure out ways to counter that. And I feel like they can. I'm not worried about the Celtics in this particular series. I just feel like they have to make sure each and every night that they show up and show out. Don't take the foot off the gas. Don't change up stuff. They know how to beat this team. They have the blueprint. Their team is not much different than from what it was before when they played them. So they have the blueprint, and we have better pieces to help us out. Let Malcolm Brogdon do his thing. At first, I used to get mad when he takes 3-point shots because I'm like, dude, why would you take it? But they go in. Like he just has a weird, awkward ass looking shot, and it
It's
goes in.
flat.
It's super flat, bro.
Yeah, but
it
they're
just
buckets, so it's like I can't even argue against it. It's
it's
got a
his
really,
shot.
like, flat, sharp angle to it, the trajectory. You want him to also be pressuring the rim too, but
Yeah,
you can't argue against he's one of the best shooters in the league in terms of his percentages from 3 this year. So, you can't turn away from him.
I won't. But you did mention Derek White. I thought game one he was terrible. The first half of this game he was kind of like on that
Slow.
trajectory.
Yeah, the shots were not falling, and I was like, "Oh, man, you need a good game from Derek." But then as soon as he started going, the rest of the team gets going too, and, like,
Yes,
it was everybody started clicking because the threes weren't falling right off the bat.
correct.
But
And you
once they
know
get
we're
the
gonna get a
momentum.
game where the threes are gonna fall right
Oh,
off
yeah,
the
like,
bat.
right off the bat, and that's where it's gonna really make a difference, and that's where you hit on this before, but, you gotta be able to not only get the bucket, but you can't just let them march down the court and just be trading buckets the whole game because that's how you lost game 1.
That's how
You know,
they lost game one.
you had a fantastic shooting performance, but then you didn't play defense, so it didn't matter, you
Right.
know? You shot, like, 70 something percent for the first half, and you're only up by, like, 2. So, you can't have that happen again, and especially going into Philly. It's gonna be a really hostile environment.
Super hostile.
Yeah, City of Brotherly Love my ass. Like, they're not they are not brotherly love. There is
Listen,
no love there.
trust me. It doesn't even matter the sport. Like it hockey, baseball,
Football
basketball.
especially,
Football's the worst.
vicious,
Super
vicious.
vicious. I mean, but it's just the way it is, man. I don't know. Their
Mhm.
city's been scarred or something.
Yeah, you
Something's
know what?
wrong.
I can't fault him for that. Besides that, before we wrap up, do you got anything else for me today, Wayne?
No, man. All the Celtics got to do is continue to stick to their game plan, and if they need to make minor adjustments, Missoula needs to just make sure that he's clear. Make those adjustments, man. They got to win Game 3. It's a must-win game for me. Should be a must-win game for them. They'll take control back of that home court advantage. They win Game 3.
Yeah, amen to that, man. Big swing if they take that, and I think going back to Boston, up would be fantastic. I don't think this is gonna be a very long series if they do that. So, besides that, we will go ahead and wrap up the show today. This has been Vitamin C's. Thank you very much for joining us, and once again, proud part of the CLNS Media Network. We'll catch you next time, folks. Cheers.
Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and make every moment more on America's #1 sportsbook.